All
Bring
right.
this.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on Wednesday workshop. We're going to be talking a little bit more about those CDL regulations that are coming into play. And with us today is Kevin Macvittie, the director of the Training Maintenance Academy at CDOT. Thanks, Kevin, and we'll pass things off to you.
Thanks. Can you guys see my screen okay? Yes, no?
Fine.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, thanks for having me, Cody. Again, my name's Kevin Macvittie. I'm the Maintenance and Operations Training Manager here at CDOT. And we just launched our internal CDL training program. So why don't we dive right into it? And I'll leave some time at the end for any questions as well. I probably won't need the full hour, but we'll kind of see how it goes. So let's just dive right into it. I'll kind of run through just a quick overview of what the new regulations are that went into effect February 7th. I'll run through what CDOT's plan is and what we're doing, how we're managing our internal program, and some of the pros and cons that we're seeing with not only the new regulations, but with kind of how we're managing our internal program. And then I'll kind of turn it over for any questions, any discussions that we need to have at the end. So diving right into it, the new federal motor carrier CDL regulations that went into effect on February 7th, basically limited to new license holders looking to obtain a Class A or Class B CDL for the first time. Anyone looking to upgrade an existing Class B license to a Class A, or anyone looking to obtain a school bus, passenger, or hazmat endorsement for the first time. Basically, anyone who falls into one of those three categories are subject to the new training requirements. And I'll get into the details of what those requirements are here in a second. Real quick, the regulations are not retroactive, which basically means if any individual was issued a CDL or an SP or H endorsement prior to the new regulations going into effect on February 7th, they're not required to complete the training. So basically, they're being grandfathered in. They don't have to go through the formal training programs, and they can essentially study on their own, do some practice with an existing CDL holder, and then simply just go in, schedule time to take the test, and go and get the license. Any current permit holders who receive that permit before the 7th, that holds true for them as well. So if you got your permit before the 7th, you're not subject to completing the new ELDT requirements. What the program looks like, and I want to stress that this is not a new program. The regulations are not new. All of these requirements essentially have been in place since about 1985, but Federal Motor Carrier is now holding the training and testing providers to a certain process and to a higher standard, essentially. So all the training has existed already. We're just being held to actually running folks through it and reporting back to Federal Motor Carrier on completing each component. So what the program looks like, there is a classroom theory portion. There's about 30 units in the classroom theory. And then there's behind the wheel training, and that's comprised of two different sections. There's range training and road training. The range training is that closed course where you're practicing the backing, turning, alley docking, things of that nature. And then the road course is essentially the instructor riding shotgun with the trainee, observing behaviors, observing decision making, and really working with them one-on-one on practical driving. From there, you schedule tests with a CDL tester, and then once you pass the test, you can then proceed to getting the actual license. So with part one, with that classroom theory training, again, this is for all operators seeking a new CDL for the first time, upgrading from a B to an A, or adding that HP or S endorsement. There are 30 units in the classroom theory portion. They average out to about 60 to 90 minutes per unit. So you're looking at around 45 hours of training content. There are assessments that go with this portion, and each trainee must score a minimum of 80% overall on the theory test. Federal Motor Carrier does give you the option to do those formative assessments at the end of each unit, or do a summative assessment at the end of the classroom training in the form of a large final exam. The way CDOT's doing it is we're doing tests at the end of each unit. That way the content from that unit is fresh in the trainee's mind, and we want to set them up for success. A lot of our folks also have test anxiety, and we want to reduce that. Giving them this big, long, involved final exam it is kind of a big ask. So we thought it would be a little more efficient and a little more beneficial to the trainee if they had those assessments at the end of each unit. Then we go to the behind the wheel training. This is the hands-on portion of it. There's roughly 19 units in the behind the wheel training. You're looking at another 44 hours, give or take, of training content. And then again, there's two components to this. The range units, which are that closed course, the pre-trip, the backing, turning, docking, and then the road units, where the trainer is really observing communication practices and the practical driving component of the training. Both the range and the road units have to be delivered by the same training provider, but you can have a different provider conduct the classroom training. So you can have one organization or provider do the theory training in either an in-person or a virtual format, and then have another provider conduct the behind the wheel. But you can't split the range and the road units. The same provider has to deliver those together. And then the last part is that test. You schedule it with a third-party tester. With CDOT, we have our own testers on staff. We have one in each maintenance section statewide. So our own people are testing our own employees. In order to be a training provider, you do have to register on Federal Motor Carrier's training provider registry website. You're essentially self-certifying that you meet the minimum requirements of the program. Each provider, you must also deliver all theory and all behind the wheel units. You can't pick and choose for relevancy. So with CDOT, you know, our primary objective is snow plowing, keeping the roads open in the winter. A lot of the units are catered to over the road truckers, interstate trucking, things of that nature. We can't omit those just because it's not relevant to our staff. We do have to train our employees on all of the units. And the reason being, if someone leaves our organization, they get a job as an interstate trucker, and then they get into an accident, because we license them, we would actually be liable for that. So you have to deliver the full training program. You can't simply pick and choose. And then after each section, you must report back to Federal Motor Carrier on the completions. You have to enter the individual's license number and their name, and let Federal Motor Carrier know when they're completing each component. All of the reporting to Federal Motor Carrier has to be done within 2 business days as well. So there's a pretty short burn rate on the reporting piece. The nice thing about that is once you enter those folks into the system, you can actually run reports. So if you're running 30, 50, 100 employees through that, once you get them all entered, you can actually pull a report through their site with dates and times on when folks receive their licenses. So it's actually a pretty nice system. So again, you have to report within 2 days. We do our plan at CDOT with each completion or each component. We'll have 2 days to report, and then we progress on to the next section. Was there a question? Okay. So what is our plan and our process? A lot of what we were looking at were issues with employee retention and fairly high rates of turnover. So our 5 regions statewide, Region 1 and Region 3 had the highest rates of turnover at 31 and 34%. The other 3 regions are sub 20, but that's still pretty high. So our overall turnover rate is about 26% right now. We're having an issue just like everyone else in the trucking and transportation industry. We had an issue with getting qualified CDL operators. So what we did, we created a position called an LTC trainee. LTC stands for Labor, Trades, and Crafts. And it's basically a trainee position where we can hire an unskilled laborer essentially without a CDL license, bring them on board, train them on CDL and many of the other maintenance tasks that we ask of our employees. With the end goal of getting them the CDL license in a relatively short amount of time. In the regions, that was about a 60 to 90 day time frame. Other areas, it was as long as 6 months. But the fact of the matter was that we promised a license, and then there really was not a very good plan for how we were going to get that license to the individual employees. So some of the challenges we ran into with that plan, the regions really did not have the capacity to deliver all of the training. And a lot of our supervisors in the regions honestly had no visibility of what was really required of this new program. The training team here through headquarters in Denver also did not have the full capacity to dedicate to this. The program requires standardization and compliance with federal rules and regulations. And we were using that trainee position as a stopgap for our driver shortage, but there was no primary focus on getting the license first and foremost. There were no structured training programs for the permit either. So we had a lot of folks who were hired on. They would go to test to get the commercial permit, and then they would fail the test. So we're trying to work with our employees to set them up for success, not only in getting the CDL license, but also getting past that first hurdle of getting the permit in hand as well. And then ultimately, we want to standardize the training statewide for all CDL and all locations within CDOT. So what we're doing, the training team is actually managing the entire program. We just launched it on Monday of this week. We have our first cohort in session right now. My team is teaching all of the classroom theory. We're also managing all of the behind the wheel training, and we're leveraging a couple different individuals to assist with that. I actually borrowed a position from one of the regions, so I'm able to staff a full-time trainer that is dedicated to CDL. I have a temporary employee that's also dedicated to it, and I have a new full-time hire that's dedicated to this program. So at a minimum, I have 3 dedicated trainers. I have an additional 3 trainers on my staff that are working on this, and then we're working really closely with our partners in the region to support the program. With that, we're coordinating with the regional testers so we can get the testing component done as closely as possible to when the behind the wheel training is completed. And that way that information stays fresh in the mind of the trainee. And then we're working with the testers to complete the reporting piece back to Federal Motor Carrier. And at the end of that process, essentially, we get the new employees for the first 30 days. So the training team kind of owns that employee for the first month. And in return, we give that employee back to the region, fully licensed, full-time permanent employee, ready to hit the ground running and join the ranks within CDOT. So what we're doing right now, we're focused on Region 1, which is our Denver metro area. We launched the program on March 7th, which was Monday. This week, we are doing the intro to CDL and the classroom theory, which will actually extend into next week. We are shooting for an end date of Wednesday, March 16th to be complete with the theory training. So we're planning on a week and a half for those first 30 units, and we're on track for that at this point. It's the first time we've run through it, so we really aren't completely sure on the timing piece. But as we stand right now, we're on track to maintain that schedule. Once Wednesday rolls around, we will be on the phone with the Division of Motor Vehicles to get the permits scheduled. So our trainees can then go into DMV, take the written test for the permit, and get that permit likely by the end of next week. So testing dates are going to be next Thursday and Friday. We called ahead to Department of Revenue, which manages DMV, and said, hey, we have folks that are going to be coming in. Is there a way we can get priority or at least kind of avoid some of the long wait times? I think the standard wait time is about 3 to 4 weeks at DMV right now because you do have to schedule ahead. They're still observing some COVID protocols with in-office visits, so you have to schedule those ahead. You can't just walk in and take the test like you could before the pandemic. And then starting the week of the 21st, once our folks have that permit, we're going to shift to the behind the wheel training. All of our range training is done through partnership with Denver International Airport, which is managed by the City of Denver. And we will be using the CDL testing lot out there for all of the range training. So we're going to spend a week at the CDL lot at DIA, conducting all those closed course exercises. The following week, starting March 28th, we will be doing a full week of road training with our operators. A lot of this is pretty logistics heavy because we do have to plan to borrow vehicles from the region. So we're pulling plow trucks, we're pulling attenuators, other Class B vehicles out of our fleet to support the training program. So there's definitely a little bit of logistics planning with the region just to pull those vehicles out of operation for that week. At that point, we'll be done with all the requirements of the program, and the week of April 4th, we'll be working with our regional testers who will come in and support our program in getting the trainees tested that week. If all goes well, our trainees pass the test and we can get them into DMV to actually get the license and send them back out in the field. So a couple kind of pros and cons of this setup. It's fast and furious. It's all hands on deck. We had the program again start on March 7th, which was Monday of this week. The pilot is going to end that first week of April. So we're looking at a 30-day time limit. It's fast and furious. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of content, and it is resource intensive. But what this does, the benefit to CDOT and the benefit to our partners in the regions, it shortens that 3 to 6 month duration that they had been managing on down to a 30-day time limit. So we hire an employee, we run them through the program right out of the gate, and 30 days later they have their license and they're a full-time employee. So we're automatically increasing retention of our new employees. Under the old program with that 3 to 6 month duration, a lot of folks weren't sticking around. With the lack of focus on getting the CDL up front, folks were simply losing interest and they were going outside of CDOT to get that CDL or not even pursuing it at all. So we're hoping to increase retention with that. Shows that we're actually focused on that licensing component and on the training component. This is just one program of many that we run within CDOT. So it's a big deal and we want to put our best foot forward with that. Secondly, we're reinforcing some of our relationships with the regional staff, with the superintendents, the deputy superintendents, and our senior foremen. They can see what we're doing. They can participate if they like. We do have some of our supervisors assisting with some of the training, some of the behind the wheel, and of course, some of that just simply wrangling the equipment and getting the equipment where it needs to be. We're also ensuring that employees are training on the equipment that they'll actually be using in the field. So we don't just have a fleet of vehicles that are either older vehicles or whatever the situation may be. It's the actual trucks that they're going to be running once they become full-time employees. So we're creating path to full-time positions. We're also creating paths for additional development, additional promotional opportunities. Once they get the license, they become a TM1. So they go from that LTC trainee position to a full-time transportation level 1 worker. And then there are additional opportunities to promote from there. So we're essentially building a career path into this process. Some of the challenges, scalability is one. With such a large audience and a large geographic footprint. The pilot that we're running in Region 1 is with a really small group at this point. Part of that is to set these initial employees up for success, and part of that is to give the training team some practice even delivering the trainings. First time we've done it as well. Another challenge is equipment availability. It's snowing today. A lot of our plow trucks are on the road. So when we have weather events, we're going to have to get pretty creative with how we work with the regions and which vehicles become available on certain days when we have weather events moving in. Statewide support has been another challenge. Right now, we're focused on Region 1 because they were the one that connected with the plan that we presented to them. Not all of the regions are on board with what we want to do. A lot of the regions actually want to control the behind the wheel piece to reduce travel time and time away from the patrol. They're losing a body during that time. They're also losing a vehicle during that time. So we're definitely tracking on some of those concerns with the other regions outside of the metro area. There's a huge time commitment to this as well. I mentioned it's all hands on deck. My entire training team right now is focused on this program, which basically means that we have kind of stopped supporting some of the other programs. We had to shuffle our schedule around. We canceled a couple classes that we did have scheduled so we can focus on this and get this program off the ground. I have all 6 of my trainers focused on this program right now. So again, it's not only time intensive, it's resource intensive. There's a lot of content. There's 30 units in that theory session. There's an additional 19 units in the field training. There's a lot of detail, a lot of content. And again, we want to make sure that our trainees are set up for success. What we have learned in discussions with our statewide trainer or our statewide testers, most of the folks who they've been working with throughout this year, even before the ELDT requirements went into effect, they had a pretty high failure rate, and most of the folks that they were working with were failing the CDL test on the pre-trip. So they were failing before they even got into the cab of the truck. So we're applying additional focus on the pre-trip portion of the training to ensure that they're set up for success in that area as well. So next steps with our program, we are working through the month of March on this first cohort to complete our pilot test. The next session, we are going to start in May, and our plans are to conduct this full month of training dedicated to CDL 6 times a year. So essentially every 2 months, we will run a new cohort through. This also aligns with some of the career fairs that our HR team and our regional teams have scheduled throughout the year to help boost our employee levels. We're still about 150 operators down statewide. So any new employees who come in without a CDL license, they're going to have an opportunity every 2 months to get into one of these CDL training cohorts and be on track to get their license within that 30-day time frame. So with that, I want to open up the room. I'm sure there are questions about what we're doing, how we're doing it, what ifs and what have you. So I want to turn it over to the group and just see what questions we have. Don't be shy.
Hello, I'm Bobby. I'm with the town of Mount Crested Butte. If you guys are doing this through CDOT, if it's successful, have you guys thought about, I have 4 employees and I'm one of them.
Right.
So if we need to rehire somebody, this gets difficult fast.
Yep.
So, have you guys ever thought about opening that up to other municipalities to try and get them through your program?
There are a lot of conversations happening about including others. Honestly, at the state level, even though we're short resources, we have enough resources to launch a program like this. It's a big lift. I inherited this program in November, so it's not like I've been working on this for 2 years. This became my problem recently. And mostly because we started looking into the training requirements. I think everybody assumed that there were maybe, there was like a full day class or a couple days of training and that was it. And then we started digging into it and we're like, no, there's a ton of stuff here. We understand that the local agencies are not necessarily going to have the resources to set up a program like this. So we're exploring partnerships with the community college system in Colorado. We're exploring partnerships with third-party providers. And we're just honestly exploring the opportunity to just include others in our program. Right now, because we are short-staffed, we are focused on CDOT's needs first and foremost. That doesn't mean that that's not going to change down the road. We need to get our program set up, working as a well-oiled machine. And honestly, we're probably not going to be there until at least after that second or possibly even the third session, where we can really iron out what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, and really get this this new machine humming, so to speak. So I don't want to tell you yes and have that change, but I'm also not telling you no. It's more of a to be determined at a future date, but totally understand that you have a small staff, you have a limited budget, and you have even more limited resources than I have. That is definitely one of several conversations that are happening at the state level. We're all in the same boat. And at the end of the day, we're all competing against each other. My CDL operator who lives in Gunnison or Crested Butte is looking at you just like they're looking at us, right? And anytime we have a construction project going on, we shoot ourselves in the foot because then we're competing with the private sector for those same operators. So long answer short, to be determined, but most likely we will be opening this up at a future date for sure.
And then second question I guess I would have is is there a program to become one of those trainers? We actually just certified a CDL driver. We had, the written test was absolutely no problem for him based on how we would do our walk around and that kind of thing. And then the only different problem that we would have is we don't have the certified course. We have access through Gunnison to be able, we work with the school district down there. But if you were to become one of those trainers, is there a process or a site to go through to sign up to be that?
To become a certified trainer, it's actually pretty loosely set up. There's no formal process. You essentially self-certify that your trainer meets the minimum requirements, and Federal Motor Carrier states that you have to possess a license, the license that you're training for or better, for at least 2 years, and have some experience delivering training. And that's really it. So you're self-certifying that, yes, this person is competent and qualified. We don't even have to report to Federal Motor Carrier and who our trainers are. We just have to say that, yes, our trainers meet those minimum requirements. With that, the content that we have, there is a train the trainer module. And likely in April or May, we will be delivering some train the trainer sessions, not only for CDOT staff, but I will most likely open this up to anybody who wants to come, as long as they meet those minimum requirements, where we can run them through the train the trainer program, dissect all of the units that are part of the training, and really get those trainers set up for success. So if you do have the ability to run that at the local level, will help you get those trainers stood up. And in addition to that, I'll go back through here. I have a link that I can post where you can actually get your hands on the content as well. We received the content through an organization called Clear Roads, which is essentially a consortium of multiple state DOTs. It was a partnership with Virginia Tech and I believe Michigan State and several other stakeholders, where they actually designed all the content for us, which was awesome because I definitely did not have the resources to build the program. But if you reach out to Clear Roads, I just posted the link in the chat. fill out the form on their website and you can request the training content, and they'll email it to you or put it on a Dropbox or a Google Drive. It's about 5 gigabytes of compressed content. There's probably 60 or 70 individual files in that program, but they give you all the PowerPoints for the theory and the behind the wheel. They give you instructor checklists for the field training. There's instructor guides, syllabus, all sorts of stuff in there. So if you reach out, you honestly fill out the form. They'll probably get back to you same day or within 1 business day. They're really responsive. And it's just an online form to request it. So that took a huge lift off of my shoulders, because we do in maintenance and operations, we probably develop about 60 or 70% of the content that my team delivers internally here at CDOT. So having to develop this program, we would not be in the seat that we're in right now, being able to launch it as soon as we did. So great question.
Thanks.
And I used to live in Gunnison, so I'll hook my partners up the highway. Any other questions on the regulations, the new training requirements, on what we're doing, how we're doing it? It's an easy group today, Cody. Everyone's waiting for the recording to come out later.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap that up if anyone doesn't have any more questions. But thank you all for joining. Kevin, thanks always for coming in and talking through your program. Really appreciate that. And obviously, Colorado LTAPs, here's a resource. I said in the chat, we have a resource page you want to look at. All resources were provided by Kevin, kind of an like overview of these new CDL regulations and everything that you may need to know. So feel free to check out that page. Use us as a resource if you do have questions. You can either talk to us. We can use Kevin as a resource. Or Kevin, do you mind if they reach out to you individually, or would you rather they come through us and we filter them?
Either way, I just put my name, my title, and my email and cell phone number in the chat. So like Bobby, if you have any other questions, if you're running into any issues with clear roads, or you have more questions about getting that train the trainer session scheduled, once I get the dates figured out, I'll let you know. But you've got my contact info now. Don't hesitate to reach out. Everybody has questions about this program. Even my team, as we're going through it, we're having questions. So there's a lot of stuff to digest. The most important piece of this, honestly, is the reporting requirements back to Federal Motor Carrier because of that 2 business day time limit. They do have the ability to audit your program, and they do have the ability to kind of pull your permissions to deliver it as well. So we're really being ultra sensitive to the reporting piece. But if you do have questions, let me know. I'll keep everybody in the LTAP community posted on next steps and timelines for Train the Trainer and additional opportunities through CDOT and through LTAP. So definitely stay connected with Cody, Heather, myself. But again, don't hesitate to reach out. Feel free to email me, shoot me a text or a phone call. I'm always available. I work Monday through Thursday. Fridays, I shut my brain off and go do other stuff. So I'm usually available 7 to 5:30 Monday through Thursday. So don't hesitate to reach out.